Okay, so this is what we have right now. This is a player table, right? And in the player table, we have 5 records. You can see 5 rows. So we have 5 records. And what if we want to add a new record of a player? Let's say we want to add a record for Maria Sharapova, who's a tennis player, but we are not sure of her date of birth. What do we do now? So in that case, what we can do is, remember to always add a new record, we use the insert statement. So this is always, insert statement is always going to add a new record. So we want to say insert into player, and this time what we want to do is we want to add data for these 3 fields only: first name, last name, because we're not sure of the date of birth, so we want to leave that out. So in this case, we are also specifying with the table name the 3 fields that we are interested in. This was not something that we did previously. Remember, if we want if we were to skip these, like if we were to do something like this, and we were simply to say values, that would mean that we are providing values for all the fields, right? For the ID, the first name, the last name, and the date of birth. If I was not to specify any field names here with the player table, that means I am adding a value to every field in the database. So let's just do that. Let's just do that one more time. So what we want to say is, ID number 6, the player is, for example, Shoaib Akhtar, right? And so I want to add Shoaib Akhtar to our database, and his date of birth, let's say, was the year 1987, dash, what have I done? I should be writing 1987 here, 1987, followed by the month, let's say, which was 11th, followed by the day, which was 14th, right? So this is one player that I want to add, right, which is Shoaib Akhtar. But the second player that I want to add is the tennis player Maria Sharapova, right? But in case of Maria Sharapova, I don't know her date of birth. So if I don't know her date of birth, I cannot insert a date of birth. So in this case, what I want to do is I only want to provide data for the ID, first name, and the last name. Because I'm not sure of the date of birth, I'm not going to provide value for the date of birth. So I only want to add data to the ID field, first name and last name for Maria Sharapova, right? In that case, I have to specify the fields for which I'm providing these values. So I'm providing a value for ID field, and I can even just go out of order. I can just say the second value that I'm providing is for last name, and the final value that I'm going to be providing is for the first name. So I can choose the order in which, because I'm providing field names, I can even choose their order, right? ID, last name, first name. Even though, ID comes first here, first name comes second, and last name comes third. But, as long as I'm providing field names, I can choose their order. And then I can say these are the values that I'm providing. I'm providing 3 values only. The first one is going to be ID. So I'm going to say the ID is 7. And then I'm going to provide the last name first, because that's what I've said here. The second value I'm providing is for the last name. I'm going to say Sharapova, and then finally I'm going to say the first name, which is going to be what? Which is going to be Maria. And I'm going to just execute this statement. And once I've executed this statement, what I can do is I can just take a look at the table, right? Select star from player. This is going to show me all the records and all the fields, and you can see, Shoaib Akhtar has been added, is what his ID number is 6, and his date of birth has been given. But as far as Maria Sharapova is concerned, her ID is 7, the last name is Sharapova, the first name is Maria, And the date of birth is not being added to the table because we didn't provide it, we were very specific that we were going to provide values for these three fields only for Maria Sharapova. So I hope you understand the behavior of the insert statement. Sometimes we can select what fields we want to provide values for. Okay, what if at this stage we found out the date of birth for Maria Sharapova? So previously we didn't know it, so we added her record and we only provided the ID, the first name and the last name. But now we found out her date of birth and we can actually update this record. So we're not going to be adding a new record. If we were adding a new record, we would have used the insert statement. But we want to update, right? And so we want to update an existing record. For that, you're going to say that I want to update the player table and I want to set the value of date of birth, right? And I want to set it equal to, for example, uh, the year 2000, and the month was January, and it was the 1st of January, right? So this is the date of birth that I want to set, and I don't want to set it. I want to set it for Maria Sharapova, and remember her ID is 7, so we can specifically say that I want to set the date of birth to 1st of January 2000 to the record whose ID number is 7, right? So this is what I'm doing. I'm saying I want to update the player table. I want to set the date of birth to the year 2000, 1st of January, where the ID is equal to 7. So this record is going to be selected and this existing record is going to be updated. So when I execute this, okay, what mistake did I make? Okay, there was no mistake as such, just that the server behaved weirdly. But this record has been added. It's the same statement. This is the correct syntax, so don't worry about that. So I've executed it and the data has been added. And let's just go back and run this statement once again, and we can now see that the date of birth for Maria Sharapova has been added. So if we want to change a value in an existing record, we're going to use the update statement. Okay, at this stage this is a player table and this has uh, the ID field, the first name, the last name and the date of birth. And we realize at this stage that we've made a mistake. We should have included the gender also, because some of the players are male and the other ones are female. So what we want to do is we want to change now the design of the existing table. So this is an existing table player, it's already there in our database. We want to change the design of this existing table and we want to add a field or a column called gender also, right? So how do we do that? If we want to change the design of an existing table, what we are saying is we want to alter the table player and we want to add gender. Uh, so we want to add this field called gender, whose data type is going to be character. And we're going to execute this. And now that we've executed, let me just show you what the table looks like right now. When we execute this, you can see that this column gender has been added. And once again, this is where we should now understand that we are going to have to update the existing records, right? Because the gender for Roger Federer needs to be added, the gender for Usain Bolt needs to be added, for Ian Thorpe, Djokovic, Hassan Ali, Shoaib Akhtar and Maria Sharapova. For all of these players, we want to add the gender. Now, remember these are existing records, so we want to update them. We are not going to insert a value, rather we're going to update them. For existing records, we use the update statement. And in this case, we can use some common sense. So the ID of Maria Sharapova is 7. For all IDs which are less than 6, which are less than 7, sorry, we want the gender value to be male, and we're going to use M to represent male and F to represent female. So what we want to say here is that we want to update uh, the player table. And remember, when we're using the update statement, what we're updating is the data, right? So we want to update the player table. We want to set the gender value equals to male, right? Uh, for all records excluding that of Maria Sharapova. And how can we do that? We can say, for example, where ID is less than 7. That's one way of doing it. Um, it should be less than 7, not greater than. Where ID is less than 7, right? So what this is going to do is that, it's going to take, the first 6 records where the ID is less than 7, and it's going to just update uh, this all of these 6 records, right? Or the other way we can do is we can also say where the ID is not equal to 7. This is the not equal to operator. If it's not equal to 7, that means, all the records which are other than this record, so ID not equals to 7 means all the records excluding record 7, right? So we can do it both ways. We can use ID less than 7, which would also mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all of these 6 IDs, or we can say where ID is not equal to 7. Either way we do it is going to work fine. So if we execute this, let me just execute this, and let me just show you what the table looks like now. So I'm going to say select star from player, and let's see, when we execute this, we can see that this gender M has been added to all the 6 records besides that of Maria Sharapova. So we want to update Maria Sharapova's record also, so we're going to say update the player table, um, set value of gender equals female, where the ID equals 7, right? So we've provided, information about which record we want to update, right? So when I execute this, and if I now take a look at the table, select star from player, you can see that, her ID, her gender has also been updated. Okay, finally, can we drop this column also? What if we say we really don't want to save the gender? Can we do something like that also? And yes, we can do that. For that, what we want to do is we want to once again change the design of the table. Remember, this is an existing table, so we're going to say we want to alter table player, and we want to drop, rather than adding this time, we want to drop this field called gender, right? And let's try and execute this. Okay, I made some mistake here. I should be saying drop column gender, and let's just try and execute this. So now that this is executed, and we can take a look at our table, and we'll see that that gender field is gone. So you can add to an existing table, you can add a field to an existing table, and you can drop a field from an existing table also.